Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me. This is your host, ID Jesser. This is part two of our Nearmost background history and overview of the fantasy world creation. In the first episode, we learned about Jucifer and Thorax and their history together, and we learned about Jucifer's betrayal and destruction upon the world of Neramos. But after thinking about it for a while, she decided there was something better she could do than destroy all of her children, destroy the world of Eremos. The god strands that they created have been corrupted, and she would send this corruption out across the lands of Neremos, and she would corrupt all the creatures that they had created. And these strands slowly but surely become blackened and tarnished with hate and malice, with nothing but evil upon the strands. And many of the creatures upon the world of Neramos were transformed into hideous new creatures. The races of men that were woven with the god strands, they were altered, and many of them became ugly creatures of the hatred and malice, as strong as humans, but more evil in their ways, and they would become known as orcs. The dwarven faction, the miners of the world of Neramos, were altered and corrupted to become goblins, their hated enemies. The small folk, the gnomes, and the halflings were turned into and corrupted into reptilian creatures that would become known as kobolds. Oh, and then she had some special favorites left to deal with. Elithandriel's race, the elves. Oh, what to do with them? How can she corrupt them? And she did. And many of them turned into ghostly creatures of elves, white-skinned, glowing eyes, living in the darkness and the shadows. And they would become known as the Drow. And last but not least, her most hated race of all, those that showed the most of her betrayal by Thorax. They were the half-elves, and they were transformed into the most hideous creatures of all. Hairy creatures that lived through the night in shadow and darkness, and they would become known as the Woven. But Jucifer's power did not stop there. She wanted more. She corrupted all manner of creatures upon the world of Neramos, from the mighty beasts of the jungles and the deserts. They were altered and corrupted as well into her desire, giving them strange and powerful abilities. Even the cute, wonderful creatures that everyone loved to gaze upon were turned into hideous and monstrosities in her desire. And finally, not only that, but she used the great beasts, the horses that the races of men used, and she changed them as well. There is no manner of beast or flower or anything upon the world of Neramos that didn't get corrupted. After she did this, she went before each of the angels and told them each the story of Thorax's betrayal, about his love for Elithandriel, his desire to break apart the gods. And so she went to them and asked them to join her side. And if they did, she would give them great power, power over hatred, power over malice, excuse me, power over death, power over destruction. They would be so much more powerful if they wished more power. Join her side. And many did, 13 in all. And she changed them all, changed their forms through the corruption of the god strands. And they would become known as demons. And soon after the 13 had joined her. The war raged across the heavens. Demons and angels at war with one another. And through the years, they fought viciously hard, each trying to get the upper hand upon one another. And as the war in the heavens raged, it also raged upon the lands of Neramos. Everywhere you went, there was the dark ones and the races of men engaged in an endless struggle against one another. Everywhere you went, death and destruction was upon the world of Neramos. Hated enemies, the lands burned. And through the years, more and more the races of men succumbed to the power given to the dark ones, and fewer of them resisted, and many of them died at the hands of all of the evil creatures that Lucifer created, that she corrupted with the god strands. Many, many of the races of men died, but the most horrible of all situations where the angels were losing to the demons as well. 5, excuse me, 5 had fallen already. And one year, Bazika, one of the most powerful demons known to Lucifer, given great strength, he had killed Tabalar, one of the 3 sibling elven angels. And when he slayed her and killed her, the heavens screamed. Her siblings decided to go to Thorax, explain the situation. They are losing. They will lose this endless war. 6 of them have now fallen, and not a demon has fallen yet. Something must be done. Something must change, or the angels and the heavens will be destroyed by the demons and Lucifer. And so Thorax thought about it. What can he do to turn the tide of battle? And the only thing he had left was to break the strands, break the ties that bind the living lives together. The God strands are broken apart. His last godly power that he had left in him, he used it to break the strands. And when he did that, the darkness and the light separated permanently and forever. All across the heavens and all across Neramos, the darkness and the light separated as the strands started to separate. And through the years, the light started to gather and coalesce in different locations, and the darkness did the same, and they became separated. But soon, the dark strands and the light strands started to merge back together in different shapes and different forms. And slowly but surely, the corrupted strands started creating life anew elsewhere. And through the years, a new realm was born, and is to be known as the Shadowfell, the darkness, and everything that is corrupt lived within the Shadowfell. And inside the Shadowfell, the dark and corrupt strands of the gods coalesced just like they did many, many millennium ago when the gods first created them. And in the Shadowfell, they made an image very much like Neramos, almost exactly like Neramos, since it was based upon the essences that were already there. And this image grew until it became as black as night. And it created a mirror of Neramos. And soon the world of Somaron was created in the Shadowfell, an exact copy of Neramos, except instead of the light and the good, it had the dark and the shadow and the evil. All across the world of Neramos, nothing was left but death and destruction. The world was torn asunder. Few remained, but at least the dark spawn, the dark ones, the demons, and all evil had gone to another realm. And the races of men once again had to pick up and start anew. Whole towns and villages left with but just a few souls to gather together. They wished not to look upon the death and destruction that had happened, and so they gathered what little they had, and they decided to venture off and create their own new kingdoms, to create the new existences, to build from scratch like they had started hundreds and thousands of years ago. And on the world of Neramos, the elves gathered together and they decided to travel to the southwest in the great forest. And they created the kingdom of the Shadow Moon. And that's where the elves would learn great foresting skills. They would become great hunters. And they would use these skills to create a kingdom for themselves. The dwarves gathered together, what few remained, and they decided to enter into the Thunder Ridge Mountains and become hidden and buried deep within the world of Neramos to start anew by themselves. The little folk, the gnomes and the halflings, created a kingdom known as the Lowlands in the northeast corner of Neramos. And where no one else laid claim to the lands, the race of humans decided to create 7 new kingdoms across the lands. And so these great 7 human kingdoms were formed as well. But often, with great destruction and great power, becomes something new. Often you find that something wondrous has happened in the most unusual situations. And that's what happened when Thorax split the God strands. With this, the races of men could actually touch and weave together these strands. And when Thorax separated the strands, he created something that mere mortals could use. And this is known as magic. They could alter the strands. And with practice and much studying, they were able to create wondrous things from just the strands. And they would start to develop and use these power through the years. But behind the scenes, just like these broken strands, there's also the dark strands, the chaos strands, hidden within the other strands. And if you weave the God strands and some of these chaos strands get involved with your spell, instead of creating life, you can create horrible death and destruction. And many tried to wield the strands of the gods, and many succumbed to the chaos power as their spells were overridden. Their bodies, their minds were corrupted with the chaos. But through the years, many were able to use these newfound magic to create grand and wondrous things. And so the world of Neramos entered a new age, an age of rebirth, an age to experiment, to find out what powers they had, to find out how to recreate what they once had. And this is the way Neramos kept for several centuries as the races of men grew once again to build, to use this newfound power, to be able to wield this new magic. And after several centuries, the world of Neramos started anew. That was until 3 years ago, when suddenly, one day, the races of men looked up in the sky. And what did they see? They saw something very similar to the world of Neramos, but it was dark and it was shadowy. And that's the way it's been for the last 3 years. The races of men looking upon and looking up at this Somaron world, surrounding their world, shadowing it wherever it goes. And every 30 days, an event happens that is now known as day-night. And what that happens to be is where the world of Somaron blocks out the sun and creates a day-night every 30 days. And that's the way it's been on the world of Neramos for the last 3 years. Sorry, guys, I kind of lost my voice there, but I didn't want to cough and kind of ruin what was going on there. But that is the end of the introductory kind of setup outline for what's to come here in our picture book fantasy novel. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed that through my losing my voice there. But hopefully, you got the gist of the background information. Look forward to working on chapter 1 for you guys so you can actually see what I'm thinking about as a picture book novel. Hopefully, the story was interesting and makes you want to come back and check out what happens when we do start up our fantasy novel. It does take me a long time to actually hunt down and find the pictures and edit them and do whatever I need to do to kind of create the scene in the background for you guys to enjoy. There is some, as you can tell, some wonderful art, and everything I found worked pretty well. It's not exactly going to be perfect every single time, but the images that I did use, I thought represented a very good um, essence of what I was trying to get across during this outline background history for you guys. So I want to appreciate everyone that watched this. Again, this is a kind of a work in progress. I had looked on the internet to see if anyone had done anything like this because I'm interested to find out what works, what doesn't work, what the best way to do this is, and I really don't know other than just creating it in my mind and then creating it for you guys and then hearing back from you guys. So if you have some thoughts, you have some suggestions, you are interested, not interested, whatever, just even a kind word of hey, good job or whatever would be helpful to let me know that there are people out there enjoying this. So well, that is the outline background history. Um, Again, I'm trying to keep these episodes to 20 to 30 minutes, so they're easy. You can get in and watch them pretty quickly, and not have to spend a lot of time there. If you think they should be longer or shorter or whatever, let me know in the comments, and we'll go from here when we pick up chapter 1 in our picture book fantasy novel. Look forward to bringing that to you, and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully everyone will enjoy it, and we'll see you then. Thanks for all your views, comments, and suggestions. Take care.